The cake sat untouched on the counter, its vanilla frosting starting to melt under the afternoon heat. Candles waited patiently. 5 of them, one for every year she'd been married to David. Elena stared at the flame of the lighter in her hand, wondering if she even had the strength to celebrate herself anymore. Then the knock came. A uniformed courier stood at the door with a thin envelope. "Signature, please." She scrawled her name absent-mindedly, thinking maybe it was a birthday surprise from her husband. Maybe a dinner reservation or something thoughtful for once. Maybe, just maybe, he remembered. But when she slid her finger under the flap, her heart turned to ash. Divorce papers. Signed. Dated. Delivered like an Amazon package. She read them 3 times before it sank in. No warning. No phone call. No conversation. Just her name on the line beside the words. Petitioner, David Cole. The man who kissed her forehead every morning. Who promised forever. Who had whispered, "I'll never leave you," even on their worst days. Now he'd chosen to leave her on her birthday. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just sat down, still holding the lighter. The candles remained unlit. David hadn't even bothered to come home. His car wasn't in the driveway. His clothes were gone from the closet. She hadn't even noticed. Maybe she didn't want to. On the table was a small wrapped box from her younger sister, Lila. Elena tore it open mechanically. Inside was a silver locket and a note that said, "This year will be different. You're stronger than you know." Elena clutched the locket tightly, pressing it to her chest. But her strength wasn't in full bloom yet. Not that night. That night, she curled up on the couch in her old college hoodie, surrounded by unopened messages and half-empty memories. She didn't respond to birthday texts, didn't answer Lila's calls. She just sat in the silence, listening to the sound of everything breaking inside her. And then, as if the universe wasn't done with her yet, her stomach churned violently. She barely made it to the bathroom. The nausea wasn't new. She'd been feeling off for weeks. At first, she chalked it up to stress. But now, sitting on the cold floor, something whispered to her gut. Not just sickness. Possibility. The next morning, she bought a test. Then 2 more. Positive. All 3. Elena stared at the tiny blue lines, her hands trembling. She wasn't just alone. She was pregnant. By a man who had already decided she was disposable. But deep inside, something stirred. Something fierce and steady. She wasn't sure what it was yet, but it didn't feel like fear. Felt like something waiting to rise. She looked down at the tests again, her tears finally falling. Not for the man who left, but for the life inside her. And without knowing how, she whispered aloud, "You're not the one who's leaving this time. I am." The clinic smelled like bleach and sorrow. Elena sat in the corner, her hands tucked under her thighs, trying to keep from shaking. Her name was finally called, and she followed the nurse into a small room with pale yellow walls and a faint buzzing overhead light. She didn't need confirmation. 3 tests at home were loud enough. But part of her wanted to hear it from someone else. Someone with a kind voice and a clipboard. "You're about 8 weeks along," the nurse said, offering a warm smile. Heartbeat strong. Elena nodded slowly. She didn't cry, didn't ask questions. Just stared at the blurry black and white image on the screen as the nurse pointed at the tiny flickering dot. "That's your baby." A baby. His baby. The same man who ghosted her inside their own marriage. Who sent her legal death papers on the day she was born. Who couldn't even look her in the eye as he decided she was unworthy of his future. Now he had unknowingly left behind a part of himself. A part growing inside the woman he'd just discarded like she was luggage at the wrong gate. Elena left the clinic in silence, the sonogram photo burning a hole in her purse. Outside, the wind felt different, sharper, like it knew she had changed, even if she didn't fully feel it yet. When she got home, the apartment was still, cold. His absence echoed louder than any shouting match could have. David hadn't checked in, hadn't asked if she got the papers, hadn't even sent a text. But she didn't need him to anymore. She had made a decision on the walk back. No begging, no explanations. She wouldn't tell him. Not yet. He made his move like she was nothing. Now she would wait for the right moment. The right stage. The one he would never expect. Weeks passed quietly. Her morning sickness was brutal, but she worked through it. She went back to freelance copywriting, projects she could manage from home. Money was tight, but she managed. She stopped checking David's social media. She stopped looking for closure in empty inboxes. Instead, she began recording everything. Doctor's appointments, test results, the growing stack of receipts. She wasn't planning revenge. She was preparing her truth. Her sister Lila was the only one who knew. "He's going to flip when he finds out," Lila said one night as she massaged Elena's feet. "No," Elena said calmly. "He's going to panic." "Same thing." Elena shook her head. "No, panic means he loses control. And I want him to feel exactly how I felt. Helpless." Lila blinked. "You're seriously not going to tell him?" "Oh, I will," Elena said softly. "But not through a call, not a letter." She leaned back, one hand resting gently over her belly. "I'll tell him at his board meeting." Lila stared, wide-eyed. "Are you serious?" Elena smiled for the first time in weeks. "Dead serious." She reached into her folder, pulled out the latest scan, and stared at the clear, perfect outline of a tiny hand. "He sent me papers," she whispered. "I'll send him proof." David Cole was thriving. Or at least that's what everyone around him believed. Every morning, he arrived at the firm's glass tower in his tailored suit, with that confident smirk that used to make Elena melt. Now it made her stomach twist, but not from the pregnancy. From the memory of how many lies could hide behind one smile. Cole and Adler Investments had just landed their biggest tech merger yet, and David had been promoted to senior partner. News outlets called him one of the sharpest minds in the city. His face was on business magazines, his name spoken in admiration across boardrooms. And he was newly single, free, unburdened. At least that's how he told it. "Elena and I just drifted apart," he had told his colleagues casually one day. "No drama. Clean break." Clean break? Elena had choked on that line when she overheard it in a video someone reposted online. Clean breaks didn't come in envelopes on birthdays. Clean breaks didn't leave someone vomiting alone in a bathroom, wondering how to tell a child one day why their father vanished before they were born. But David didn't know she was watching. That was the beauty of staying quiet. She watched him smile through champagne toasts, watched him post vacation pictures from Barcelona just 3 weeks after the divorce was filed, watched him pose with other women, none of whom looked like someone carrying his child. And she stayed silent. Until the email. One of Lila's college friends worked at Cole and Adler as an admin assistant. Elena had never met her, but Lila had mentioned her once, and Elena had quietly reached out. 2 weeks later, the girl sent her David's full calendar, including the quarterly board meeting, high profile, internal only, invite only, media coverage expected, a celebration of the company's record-breaking quarter, the perfect place to interrupt perfection. Elena circled the date. Then she booked a courier. One of the old-fashioned ones, the kind that wore gloves and delivered luxury gifts, usually to penthouse suites or gala venues. She wrapped the package carefully. A matte black box, tied with a silver ribbon. Inside, one framed sonogram, one DNA test result with his name printed clearly under confirmed father, and a handwritten note that said, "Since we're making announcements today, I thought I'd send mine too. Elena." She sealed the box and held it in her lap for a long time. She wasn't doing this to hurt him. She was doing this because he had taken her silence as weakness, because he had rewritten their story, and she was taking the pen back. As the courier stepped into the elevator that would take him to the 31st floor, Elena turned and walked away from the building without looking back. But by the time he opened that box, there would be no unseeing what she had sent. The boardroom was all glass, leather, and polished silence. 20 people sat around the massive mahogany table, sipping espresso, reviewing reports, and exchanging forced smiles. At the head of the table, David straightened his cufflinks and nodded confidently as his assistant clicked through the PowerPoint slides. Quarterly profit margins have exceeded expectations by nearly 18%, he announced. Our projections for next fiscal year. The door opened. Everyone turned. A man in a charcoal gray suit stepped inside, holding a sleek black gift box with a silver ribbon. The courier. David blinked, thrown off for the first time all morning. Mr. Cole? The man asked politely. David stood, confused. Yes, this is for you. Signature required. Whispers stirred like wind through wheat. A few board members glanced at one another, puzzled, curious. David took the box slowly and signed, trying to maintain composure. Must be from the press, he joked, letting out a light chuckle that didn't quite land. Or a fan. The courier nodded once, bowed slightly, and walked out as quickly as he came. David set the box on the table, hands steady. But the air had changed. He could feel it. He untied the ribbon and lifted the lid. First, the note. He read the handwritten message once. Then again. His smile cracked. He pulled out the framed sonogram next. The image was crystal clear. The curve of a head, tiny hands, a date stamped in the corner. Laughter died. Then the paper underneath. The DNA confirmation form. Confirmed biological match. David Cole. He stared at it, throat dry. What is it? One of the board members asked. David didn't answer. Across the table, his junior partner leaned forward, squinting. Is that a baby? Someone else gasped. A woman from HR whispered, That's a sonogram. David opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He stood frozen, the picture trembling in his hands. Not from love, not from awe, from exposure. Because now every powerful person in that room knew he had lied. He hadn't just left his wife. He had abandoned her while she was pregnant. He hadn't started a new chapter. He had closed the old one mid-sentence. Someone coughed awkwardly. Another board member quietly picked up her phone. Whispers bloomed into murmurs. Then the questions started. David, is this real? Did you know? Why would she send this here? The assistant froze at the laptop, unsure whether to keep going. David swallowed hard, barely able to hold the photo anymore. His perfect world, polished, scripted, curated, had just cracked open. And Elena didn't even have to walk in to do it. David looked down at the photo again, and for the first time in years, he saw something he didn't recognize in his own reflection. Consequences. Elena knew when the box was delivered, not because the courier told her, but because David started calling. The first call came less than an hour after the meeting was scheduled to start. She watched her phone light up with his name for the first time in months. She didn't answer. Then came the texts. David. What the hell, Elena? David. Are you serious right now? David. You blindsided me in front of the board. David. We need to talk. She turned her phone over, face down. He hadn't wanted to talk when he served her divorce papers on her birthday. He hadn't wanted to talk when he moved out, vanished, and played the victim. Now he wanted conversation. Now that his reputation was shaking, let him squirm. She wasn't being cruel. She was just done being invisible. Lila peeked in from the kitchen. Is he still blowing up your phone? Elena nodded. Lila walked over and dropped a fresh bowl of rice and stew in front of her. You good? I'm good, Elena said softly, almost surprised at herself. She expected to feel more chaos inside. But the chaos was all his now. She was steady, calm. For once, her silence felt like power, not punishment. The next morning, a new number called. A woman's voice, polite but firm. Hi, this is Janine Douglas, HR Director at Cole & Adler. We'd like to set up a conversation if you're open to it. Elena leaned against the window. Is David aware you're calling? Yes, we're addressing internal concerns and potential reputational risks to the firm. Elena let the silence hang for a beat. Then, everything I sent was factual. We're not disputing that, Janine said quickly. We just want to understand the scope of what's been made public, and whether there's anything else to anticipate. Elena smiled faintly. Tell your board I don't leak, I don't sue, and I don't make threats. Janine hesitated. Then what's your intention? To be left alone. With support. Legally. Janine cleared her throat. David mentioned, you might be willing to have a private conversation. He's requesting one. Elena paused, staring at the sonogram framed beside her laptop. She traced a finger along the edge of the glass. Fine, she said. Tell him he can see me. A beat of relief came through the phone. Great. We'll arrange something discreet. Elena's voice stayed even. Not at his office. And not on his terms. She hung up and looked at her reflection in the window. Stronger, sharper. Nothing like the woman who once cried over his absence. This time, she wasn't walking into a room to beg. She was walking in with proof of everything he tried to erase. The meeting was set at a neutral location. An upscale cafe with private booths tucked away in the back. Elena arrived first, calm, dressed in a soft navy dress that draped over her small but unmistakable bump. When David walked in, he looked like a man who hadn't slept in days. His collar was uneven, his expression desperate. He sat down without a word. Elena didn't offer a smile. He stared at her stomach for a moment before finally speaking. Why would you do that to me? She let out a soft breath. You mean send you the truth in front of your board? Yes, he snapped. That was humiliating. She blinked. Imagine how I felt on my birthday. That silenced him. He shifted uncomfortably. Look, I didn't know you were pregnant, Elena. If I had, you still would have left. She cut in, her voice low and even. Because you already had. David opened his mouth, then closed it again. You wanted clean, quiet, professional, she continued. You wanted me to disappear like a wrinkle in your record. I just didn't want to be trapped in a marriage that wasn't working. And instead, you trapped me in silence. In grief. You sent papers like I was a problem to be filed away. His jaw tightened. You humiliated me, he said, softer now. No, Elena said, leaning forward. I revealed you. You humiliated yourself. The waitress came and went silently, sensing the weight of the conversation. Neither of them touched their drinks. David rubbed his forehead. What do you want from me? Elena pulled a small folder from her bag and placed it on the table. I want what I'm owed. Spousal support, medical expenses, a safe home for this baby, and your name on the birth certificate. David stared at the folder like it was poison. If you're afraid of the media, Elena added, don't be. I didn't go public. I don't need noise. I just need justice. He flipped open the folder and scanned the documents. Everything was clean, organized, professional. She'd done her homework. After a long silence, he nodded stiffly. Fine. Elena stood. You're going to be a father, David. Whether you want that role or not, this child exists. And I will never let them feel unwanted the way you made me feel. She tucked the chair back into place. I don't need you to be involved, she added as she picked up her purse. But I do need you to be accountable. David remained seated, staring at the table, still silent. She didn't wait for him to say goodbye. 1 year later, Elena stood outside a cozy brick building with a new sign above the door. The Paper Phoenix, support services for women left behind. It wasn't a law firm. It wasn't a counseling center. It was both and more. A space for women like her. Women who were blindsided, silenced, erased. Her son, Caleb, slept peacefully in the stroller beside her. Inside, a group session was beginning. A woman stood near the window holding a folder of her own. Elena smiled softly. Not every woman gets to rewrite her ending, but sometimes she gets to rewrite her purpose. She looked down at her son, kissed his forehead, and whispered, You were never the consequence, baby. You were the reason I rose. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe and don't forget to turn on the notification bell. Thank you. We hope to see you in our next video.